Hailing the Maccabean Revolt. A tale of resilience and redemption. Peace, everyone. Welcome to another episode of History Meets Prophecy on the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries YouTube channel. Today we are delving into an inspiring chapter of Israelite history, the captivating story of the Maccabean Revolt, as depicted in the Apocrypha, specifically in the books of the Maccabees. So, grab your virtual time machines and let's embark on this journey together. Apocryphal Books of Maccabees. The Apocryphal Books of Maccabees, particularly the first book of the Maccabees, provide a detailed historical account of the events that unfolded during the Maccabean Revolt. Before we dive into the heart of the Maccabean Revolt, let's set the stage. It's the 2nd century BCE, and the land of Judea is under the rule of the Seleucid Empire, led by King Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Antiochus IV, driven by a desire to Hellenize the region, imposes strict measures against Israelite customs, leading to widespread discontent among the Israelites. It's a time of oppression, a time that sparks the flame of resistance. Introduction to the Maccabees. Enter the Maccabees, a family of brave and determined individuals led by the valiant Judah Maccabee. Fueled by a fervent desire for religious freedom, they rose against the Seleucid forces, initiating what we now know as the Maccabean Revolt. The pivotal moment occurred in 165 BCE, when Antiochus IV desecrated the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. This vile act sparked a rebellion led by Judah Maccabee, who became a symbol of resistance against this persecution. As the story unfolds, we witness the baton passing from Judah Maccabee to his brothers, Jonathan and Simon, who continue the fight for the independence and autonomy of the Israelite people. The Maccabean Revolt leaves a permanent mark on Israelite history, symbolizing the resilience of a people unwilling to compromise their faith. The Hasmonean dynasty that emerged from this struggle shaped the course of events in Judea. The second book of the Maccabees, Martyrdom and Faith. Turning our attention to the second book of the Maccabees, we find a focus on the religious aspect of the revolt. The book narrates stories of martyrdom and emphasizes the steadfast faith of those who chose to remain loyal to Israelite traditions. The Maccabean Revolt leaves an enduring legacy, highlighting the resilience of a people determined to preserve their faith and cultural identity. The Hasmonean dynasty that follows shapes the region's history, as documented in these apocryphal texts. And there you have it, the awe-inspiring saga of the Maccabean Revolt, a witness to the enduring spirit of the Israelite nation. As we reflect on this chapter in our rich history, may it inspire us to stand firm in our convictions and cherish the freedoms we hold dear. It should be noted that while this is an endearing story, the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries does not consider the apocryphal books, including the Maccabees, as part of our scriptures. Our teachings are drawn from the 66 books within the Authorized King James Version Bible. Thank you for joining us today on History Meets Prophecy. If you enjoyed this journey through time, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue bringing you these incredible stories that connect our past with the present. Until next time, may peace be upon you all.
Welcome to the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. I'm Elder Michael.
And I am Officer Chamain, and today we have with us again our wonderful Elder Jeffrey.
Hello, peace everybody. Glad to be here.
Peace, elders.
Excellent, excellent. Well, first of all, I want to welcome everyone here. Thank you once again for joining us. And please do not forget to like, to comment, to share, to subscribe, and even to donate. Your donation comes in very useful. Thank you. And remember that this is an interactive session. So please put your comments, your questions, concerns, whatever you have onto the screen, and we will do our best to address them. So firstly, I just want to say thank you to our Dr. Jeffrey, because it was his topic.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. And also, if you guys enjoyed the introduction and you would like to see us do more of these, please let us know as well. We're just trying to do some different things to make it more interesting.
Yes.
So let's begin with our first slide. I just want to also say welcome to some of our usual participants like Lindia and Albert and Corrine, Roxanne, the Calhouns, Stephanie, Donna, Robin. You guys, we look forward to having you with us every week, and thank you so much for your support. It doesn't go unnoticed. Everything you say, really means a lot to us. So thank you once again for joining us today.
And let me say, if I could, I have to give a shout out to my son, Ezra. We were in a conversation earlier and had asked him, like, hey, what topics would you like to see on History Makes Prophecy? And this was one of them, and I sent them to you, Officer Chamain. And so I got to give him credit because, it kind of came from him. He had,
my mistake, because I said Dr. Jeffrey.
Yeah. No, it came from Ezra.
But I'm sure that Jeffrey was way there, he was
for sure. Well, what happened is I did a series on this, the Greeks and the Maccabees, when I was in St. Louis a few years ago, quite a few years ago. And so that because this story is not told a lot, but it does help give you a bridge between the First and Second Testament that it really it's stuck in them. So they always wanted me to do it again. I just never got to it. So when it came up, I was like, oh, let me send it also Maine. I think it'd be a great topic for people because I'm not sure people know about the Maccabees.
I think it's an excellent topic, and I really enjoyed looking into it as well. I read the book of the Maccabees a few years ago, and I guess I really didn't form a solid opinion then, but I have more of an opinion now, and we'll probably get into some of that later on. But remember, that's just my opinion. But
yes.
I did find it very interesting, and even knowing that it was between the last prophet, which was Malachi, and the Gospels, and apparently that period was about 400 years as well. So that was quite interesting too. So, but yeah, it was really interesting to see how we feared, because it was always interesting. It's like, what happened to us during that time, really? So now we know.
Yes.
What I find fascinating about it is, again, there's a pattern that keeps unfolding over and over and over. We have the lie trying to destroy the truth. And, despite the fact, like when I listen to this and see it, it reminds me of what happened in ancient Egypt at the time of Moses, when, again, Pharaoh is trying to destroy these people. Why can't they just work on their own territory? Leave us alone. So they want us to serve their God. Why? Of course, it's rhetorical, because we know it's a battle against truth versus the lie. I want our audience to see the picture, see the pattern, and recommend and remember that same pattern is continuous to this very day.
100%. That's one reason why I think it's so important, because it really, it talks about, even mentions in the Second Testament about, all these things are going to happen to us until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Yes.
Well, the time of the Gentiles pretty much starts with the Greeks.
Yes.
And so their methods of oppression and their methods of how they try to get us away from our God, or there's some origins there that still take place now.
Yeah.
Like, for example, it wasn't all military might or sacrifice or things like that. There was some attractiveness to the Greek culture that attracted a lot of us to follow in that direction. And so it's hard to really appreciate the power and the honor that Maccabees should be given without understanding the environment that they had to deal with. They had individuals inside of Israel and outside of Israel they had to fight against. And it's because of this big, huge culture, right? I guess we'll get into it, that has just dominated the planet. To me, it really feels like how we talk about the American culture, how like everybody wants to be the American lifestyle, right? The capitalism, the height of progress, the height of the human mind being able to like figure out everything and just create all these various things, and there's so much modernism and progression and the individual and this humanistic thought. It was, and so people like, oh, I want to be like them. I want to be American. I want to have American clothes. I want to have American music. I want to do American life. I want to do American gods. All these various things. That was sort of like what the Greek culture was like worldwide, following Alexander the Great throughout that whole region. So there was a lot of global movement to really help adopt this type of lifestyle, and some of Israel partook in that as well. So, you have to kind of get the understanding of that to really get an understanding of like what they had to deal with,
Yes. Somebody mentioned that it was more like a civil war as opposed to, because everything, as you said, was happening internally, and as you said, fighting against their own people as well, because of what the practices that they were participating in.
Yeah.
We'll see some of that later as well.
Adopting from around them, and it's fascinating. Again, it's hard to describe, in one sitting. That's why, prior I did like a whole series on it, and but it is fascinating because you see some of those same type of things today, where you see the influence is that the larger culture tries to infiltrate, within our culture, and so I think that's why I think it's important to kind of see what that looks like, because hopefully we can identify and insulate ourselves from those type of same techniques that are being used even now today.
Yes, no, absolutely. I completely agree. But I would like to ask our guest today, has anybody heard of the Maccabean Revolt? Does anyone know anything about it? What is your perspective? Okay, just a thought.
There may be a little delay. I don't know if they've ever heard of it or whatever, but
okay. All right. So let's go to the first slide.
Okay.
So as usual, we have our fair use disclaimer. I think it's very important because we do, try and get as many information out there as possible, but it's just for educational purposes. Yes. Okay. And yes. Okay. So this is the video that you just saw. This little bit of this introduction.
Yeah. Well done. I like that.
We should point out, Officer Chamain, that the part where they were carrying the 7-branch candlestick, that a later period of the Roman era is supposed to be.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. That comes from the Archititus, right?
That's right.
Yes. Yes, it's just there for visual effect.
It is still relevant to the subject.
It is, because it repeats itself, right? It's the same thing. Exactly.
It's just a few years later that happened as well.
Right.
She knew. The Officer Chamain is very smart. She knew it was coming, so that's why she put it in with the Greeks.
I read it.
Yeah, that's right. Prophesy. Yes.
Okay, so this is a timeline that we have that depicts the actual revolt, but we can break it down so that we can actually see what's written here. Let's go to the next slide so we can break it down. Okay, so here we have the key events of the Maccabean Revolt. So as mentioned in the video, Antioch the Fourth, Epiphanes, became the
King.
the king at the time. This was what, 175 BCE. And then he launched a campaign to suppress the Israelite religion or their practice and enforce their version of their practice, which was in 165 BCE. And then you got 167, where he desecrates the temple in Jerusalem. So this happened several times. This is quite interesting. When I read this, it's like, okay, but this happens again later on. And this is you know, the enemy, they really know how to target
See,
our spirituality, you know,
that's the point. That is my point earlier that I mentioned, because they're pawns in the game, basically. And they don't know, because they think that, they're going to capture these people. Like, look, there's no gold in the land. If you really want, and there's not even oil. I mean, back then they didn't know about that, but there's nothing there except the spiritual relationship, the spiritual strength and confidence that our foreparents had in the creator of heaven and earth, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So if they could remove that and replace it with their idolatry and divination, then they would get credit from the adversary, who, as we know, is Satan. But again, they don't know all this background information. All they know is that they are motivated by some demonic forces. They don't know that that's what's happening, and they go forward and do it. And it's happening again today.
Yeah. And again, it's like they've gone to the heart of our culture, of our world. And this is the heart. The altar is our heart. Even today, the altar is our heart. This is our connection. This is what keeps us going. I look at the altar. What's that movie called? Oh, with all the people and they're all blue. What's that? Oh my gosh, they had parts recently. Yeah,
I know what you mean. The 3D. It was a 3D movie.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I know. Oh, what is it? Yes, it's on tip of my tongue.
Yeah,
the A, right? Avatar. Okay, thank you.
Avatar. Yes. So I feel like also is our connection to the God of Israel, right? So we all need to be connected.
Yes.
To that altar in order to have that communication with the. Somebody said Smurf.
Actually, you got to be careful how you talk about movies, because I get carried away. And I tell you this much: an avatar is really a demon from the water.
Yeah, well,
which, when we go back to the first flood, when the God of Israel is cleansed in the time of Noah, okay, that spirit, he didn't kill the spirits, he killed all the physical elements. That spirit now came back and even resided with Nimrod, and that's how they started the tower. So, I mean, I can get carried away on that one, but I'm not going to go there.
Well, I mean, there is something to this. But you tend to wonder, where people are actually getting their ideas from, and
correct, for sure.
At the end of the day, they are being influenced by that spirit, right? That spirit.
It's the same story told in a different way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a couple things. One is interesting, and I know this is history meets prophecy, but we will see this story being prophesied in the scriptures, right? Amos speaks about surely the Lord does nothing except he reveals it to his prophets, right? And in Daniel, one of the stories of Daniel is Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, and in the dream is first of all, he forgets the dream, and then he tells his wise men and Chaldeans, tell me what the dream is and the interpretation thereof, otherwise I'm going to kill all of you guys. So Daniel, being a wise man in the kingdom, hears this and like, listen, don't worry, I'll go talk to my God. He's going to give it to me. So he gives it to him, and I think this is Daniel 2. He gives it to him, and so the dream was the big, huge image, and it has different metals, all the way through the image. The head is of gold. Yes. The chest and the thing, I think, is silver,
then
or bronze, and then iron, and then it goes down to iron and clay, right? And so he says each of these represents different kingdoms. You Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon will be the top, and then the next one, as you go through, you see the interpretation thereof. So basically, Babylon is the world power, Then Persia is going to come into the scene, and after Persia, then is going to come Greece. And then after Greece, you have the iron and Rome, and then go into other things, things. So we see this manifestation of what's happening was prophesied to us by the God of Israel and through Daniel and so on and so forth, that this was going to happen, that the Greeks were going to come and take over. And then we see, Alexander the Great and stuff come and take over. As I said, there's a term that's used with the Greeks in the culture. Like now we would say democracy, right? And freedom and all these various things, and individual freedom. Then there was sort of Hellenism, right? Was the term that's used for the culture of the Greeks that was being purported all over. And again, it wasn't just through military might. It was also through this attractiveness of people like, if you're modern, if you're a free thinker, if you're progressive, if you're not caught in the old time ways, you got to get, this is where like the philosophies, this is what Aristotle, all these things we thought was very attractive to people, and people voluntarily wanted to be connected to it.
Elder Jeffrey, that's a very important point. And remember, look at the word Hellenism. How does it begin? Hell.
That's right. What's the point? Drop mic. Exactly. That's it. We're done. Exactly. We're done. Yes, we're done.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So it was very that. So I say that to say is, while it's just hard to say, hard to not believe, but if you think about it, well, two things. One, every nation that ends up becoming a world power, we have a big part to do with that. We're there. We're on the scene, especially as Israelites, as Jacobites in this land. We're usually told we have no history. We're not there. It doesn't matter. But no, in every single kingdom of every time in history, ever since God created this world, we were there in a significant way, helping, some ways in a positive way, a lot of times in a negative way, but we're there having great influence. So the capture or the dominion of Israel, wasn't just a trivial thing to these world powers, because we were like a gateway between Asia, between Africa, and between Europe. Those weren't the names at the time, but that's a gateway that's there. And so we were always very significant to that. So capturing us, was usually a stepping point to then, continually having control over that full region. So it wasn't. I mean, that's we know there's a spiritual reason, but from their political reason, their the political reasons and the aspirations always was a big part. So we see through that. Even with the Persians and the Babylonians, even coming into the Greeks, even with the Romans, we see later on, continues on where we just keep going back and forth. So it was in that. So another point about we always significant. That's number one. Number two, the other point that I'll pull from this. Unfortunately, a lot of us were complicit or promoting the Hellenization within Israel. When you read about it, you see that some of them even promoted not being circumcised, and I'm like, how do you? That's used uncircumcising themselves. Uncircumcising themselves, so they wouldn't be a part of it. And a part of this is connected to a part of the Greek culture, which deals with gymnasiums and the Olympics and the male form. And so what they did is that these are not just some Israel. I'm just trying to show you where the battle was in and out of Israel when by the time the Maccabees come on the scene, is they actually established, one of the places of gathering for men were gymnasiums in the Greek culture. And a part of this is where they would actually wrestle naked. And in Israel, nakedness is not, it's not something that we would do like that.
This wasn't our culture.
No, that's not our culture. But again, you want to be part of the modern thing. This is something that they did, and that part of that was, being circumcised in that environment would be like, oh my goodness, what's wrong with you? So that, and I'm gonna just touch on this a little bit.
That's really
there also is a part of this that is tied to the concept of man-boy love in Greek culture. Now, for us, it sounds like a very crazy thing, like how is this a thing? But this is a part of the culture where elderly men would befriend younger boys in a sense that, the boys give them pleasure, and the old man can give them knowledge, right? And it's a little bit more deeper than that, but I'm going to show you some of the things of the culture. When we talk about gymnasium, it's not just exercising, right? There's a lot going on there.
I know a lot of that was depicted in the movie Alexander. So you see a lot of that. They kind of brought that out as well, because yeah, you're right. I mean, at the time, and this is just how it was. It's not me. You're making it up, but at the time, it was when you say, you're going Greek, it meant a certain thing, right? Man, boy, love. That's what it meant. You're going Greek, okay? But you're right. They were very big on that type of relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Dexter Parker said, not sure if he explained it or not. What is Hellenization? So I mean, like Ella Michael said, the beginning part is hell, so that should be enough right there. But it is the promotion of Greek culture throughout the Greek empire. Yeah. And so and again, it was definitely there was force there, but there also a lot of it was people wanted to be a part of the latest, greatest culture that's out there. Again, I think of a lot of the American culture, right? You don't have to convince people to be American. They hear the music, they want to be a part of it. They see the styles, they see the Hollywood, they see the movies. People who can't even speak English want to be American because of how much is promoted as this is the latest and greatest and modern thing. If you're not part of this, you're old, you're ancient, you're not. You're just the old. Who wants to do that old stuff? We want to do the modern way. That's what Hellenization was back then.
And when I think of Hellenization, I also think of the god Bacchus, which translated means son of Cush, which is Nimrod. But the Bacchus, from Bacchus, we got Bacchanal. And anyone from the Caribbean, especially, or from Louisiana, would know what a Bacchanal really is. You're practically naked again. You're partying, you're drinking, and all of that kind of stuff. So this is something that's very important to set the tone so that people could understand. Highly spiritual, just like Christmas, but also very entertaining if you don't understand the spiritual dynamic.
Yeah. And it also feeds into the humanistic perspective, right? It goes all the way back to the garden where the serpent said, Didn't God say don't do this? It's like saying, well, he knows when you do that, your mind is going to be opened and you're going to know, you're going to have, these wisdoms and these understandings. So these philosophies, these school of philosophy, school of thought, what is life about? What is death? What is love? All these various things are concepts like you are knowing in yourself that if you study these things, you can come to these enlightenments. So this whole idea of personal enrichment, above and beyond the whole, is again a way of thinking that we still have today, right? So this idea of like my personal freedoms and my personal existence and my personal perspectives, it goes above and beyond the whole, right? Above and beyond the whole. When we speak about Israel, we speak about a family, right? We speak about our God and the law, statute, and commandments as being ruling over us, and our family and things that we do and sacrifice for, not for myself, not to enrich myself, but to enrich my family. It's different. They're counterimposed upon one another. That's why Jesus Christ so many times says, no, don't think about who's greatest in the kingdom. If you want to be the greatest in the kingdom, be like this little child. Right? Yes. That's the way the Gentiles think. You're not supposed to think that way. Well, those train of thoughts are coming out of this Greek tradition, these Greek
philosophies. Sorry, go ahead, Elder Michael.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ella Jeffrey, to your point, there's so much more to it. I mean, it is not just about the God of Israel in an abstract way. Excuse me. There is also that physical dynamic where you look and you see the sun, you see the moon, you see the stars, you see the vegetation, the animals. Everybody should know how we got these items, who created them. And if that is the case, it's not that you're going to go and visit him. I mean, there's a way to do it, a spiritual way, but I'm just saying, like, this is not something you can do physically, but you can at least get that knowledge and appreciate the fact that the sun is shining to enhance your food supplies and so on and so forth. The rain is coming. There's a reason why we were given this, so that we can share it with the world, so that they can understand how they got to be where they are. Now, even Elder Donna was saying here, is Hellenization related to Helen of Troy? I think that Helen of Troy was an allegory, a story, but with a hidden meaning behind it. That's my opinion. And also you have like the Trojan War and stuff like that. stories that are telling a secret in a way that not revealing the truth, in my opinion. So these are things that need to be understood, because that's part of the Hellboy mentality with the Hellenization of the whole process.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Elder Michael. And even to what Elder Jeffrey was talking about, the whole idea, this is like where philosophy became really dominant. And you're right, it was more of self-enlightenment. It was more of individuality as opposed to the community or the collective. It was more about self-knowledge and self-awareness as opposed to understanding, as you said, Elder Michael,
The creation of
creation,
Mm-hmm.
the big picture. And what that leads you to is pretty much looking at yourself as a supreme being, right? You start to look at yourself because now you're gaining all this knowledge. Now you're too, you need to speak to people that are in search of the same kind of thing. And that's where you would go and start to follow what the Greeks are doing or follow their philosophy. And the big question, which is still a big question in philosophy, the meaning of life. But it's like, hold on a sec, you should be talking about the meaning of your own life, but you can't impose that on someone else. But that's what philosophy does. It's like, oh, the meaning of life is for everything or everyone. No, it isn't.
And who comes to mind when you think like that? There's only one person, right? The adversary,
right?
vanity, exalted.
That's exactly what it is. It is all vanity. The thoughts of vanity. It's like it just drives you insane because that's a question that they asked thousands of years ago, and they're still asking the same question today. So that's madness. Because with Israel, you have the answers. What is the meaning of life? It says it right there in Ecclesiastes. It's keep His commandments. That's very simple. We don't need to go and search for the meaning of life.
Right.
God and keep His commandments. Okay. Anything else? Any more questions? But that's exactly it. When you start, the philosophy also talks about seeking wisdom, and I thought, oh, this is such a great thing. Yeah, go out and seek wisdom, but that takes you right back to the scriptures. It's everything is there. It's like, wow, you read the book of Proverbs, and it tells you how to live your life. Eat, drink, and be merry. Serve the God of Israel, seek wisdom and understanding. It's beautiful. We don't have questions, right?
Absolutely.
We don't have worldly questions that keeps you in a little loop or a little whirlwind.
And wisdom without the truth is a scam.
Yes, for sure. And it's so funny to that, Officer Chamain. And so, I can't know how many times raising my kids, and you of course you give them the instruction, the foundation, offered up in the 8th day and understanding all these things. But then as they become young people, hey, they get exposed to all these other concepts, other philosophies, and things like that. And not that they're putting value to it, but they're like, absolutely curious as any person would be. And maybe they may go, and this experience may happen to them in life, and this whatever. And then they'd be like, just like you said, oh, you know what? Go to Proverbs and read that chapter. Tell me what you think. And they are amazed when they look at it and be like, "Oh my goodness, this is exactly what I'm going through." I'm like,
happens to me. That
see, it's exact the way I feel, the way I think, the what I'm going through. This is exactly what's there, So you're so true. That happens so many times.
That's exactly what happened, and that's actually why I actually took philosophy. Okay. Yeah. Judge me, okay? I this philosophy. And that was really what I was looking for. It's like, okay, so this wisdom, this is so great. And I'm telling you, it led me right back to the scriptures, and I'm thinking to myself, wow. This is so incredible. Because when you read the scriptures, it says, seek ye wisdom. The wisdom is the principal thing, the beginning thing. And it's like, there you go, right here. This is what it means, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, wow, it's beautiful. But
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, you know what I used to think as well, and I kind of still do, that when you had all these philosophers coming in and asking all these questions, it's because they've read our books or they've heard our stories, and they didn't have one for themselves. So they had to ask those questions. It's like I need to know my humble beginnings, because they don't know.
Right.
We knew ours, so now they're asking a question. So, what is my humble beginning? So, how did this happen? So, why is this there and why is that there? Well, we already we know. Well, God made it. God made it. It's like, what? What do you need to know?
It's a good point, because a lot of the philosophies, or philosophers, I should say, started out in Egypt, Alexandria, after the death of Alexander from Macedon. But my point is, they had a copy of our scriptures. The Old Testament was translated into the Greek language, and they were able to read some of it. And that's where the disputation started. And
This
out of
is
that
the
disputation,
issue with the Apocrypha itself.
right?
Yes.
Exactly. That's where the Apocrypha came from. And a lot of these books that are excluded weren't written by us. They're written by those guys trying to put pieces together that they heard here and there. That's it.
Exactly. And that's why there's the distortion, and that's why you can't feel the spiritual aspect when you're reading the Apocrypha. I mean, you imagine there was like, how many people from the time of Adam to that time even? Probably billions of people, right? That's gone through the system. But you imagine how many of those people wrote about themselves, or spoke about themselves, or spoke about their life, or spoke about their families. Loads. Okay. Out of that, we only got 66 books, right? We couldn't have all the other books. We couldn't. So we had to look at those that are really inspired by the Spirit, by the God of Israel's Spirit, right? We had to look at that, because not all of them were.
Right. So and it's okay. Finish.
Sorry, I'll keep going.
No, and it's a good point, Dick, and that's a clear distinction, right? Our Bible, our Holy Bible, that we make holy, is the King James Version, right, of the Bible, 66 books. And we know that those books have been kept and preserved for us in these latter days to be able to utilize as our guide. This is what we would call in academia our primary source. And we know that as we read it, and we can see the connection. Absolutely. So now when someone comes and says, oh, did you read this book? Did you read that book? That book? I know in Israel, we teach, hey, go ahead, go get knowledge. Read whatever you want. Read whatever you want. But understand that this is the primary source. And so something like the Apocrypha, but it's not like you said. It's crazy to think that this is all we ever wrote, right? That we've written thousands of books. We had libraries, right? We had already. Of course we did. But like you said, those can be read, but more like secondary or tertiary sources. And the way that usually works is, to like you said, what is it like being an Israelite in 2023? I could write my book. Okay, someone in generations later can read it and say, oh, that's pretty interesting. Don't take it to say this is the inspired word of God, right? This is just this is life according to Jeffrey, right? That's all this is. So there's a lot of stories like that. I think the Apocrypha has a lot of those things as well. So we don't look at it for doctrine or to drive anything, but it does give us some pretty good insights into what people were doing and some historical events and even what they were thinking at the time. Secondary sources.
Here's a similarity that I want the people to consider. Can you imagine when the slaves got off the slave ships in Virginia, they did not have any books with them, but yet they sang the history and culture of the Bible, right? And how is it possible that they could do this? Now, they didn't go word for word, but the fact that they can take the substance and put it into a musical form speaks of high level integrity and intellectual capacity. So now if you were to collect, and some people did, all these songs and write a doctrine around them, it would be partially biblical, whether you're Israel or not. So it's similar. That's how a lot of the philosophical stuff, it's not that there was music, but they got bits and pieces from different people in Alexandria. If you think of Alexandria, I always think of Alexa. You know Alexa, right? And of course, when you think of philosophy, I think of philosophia. Sophia, right? That's the philosophy part of it. And I can go on. There are others as well, but I'm not going to take up much time.
Okay, so we have a question from C. Calhoun. Thank you for your question. And basically saying, so you are saying that the Apocrypha is not dependable. It's not dependable history necessarily, correct?
I agree.
I don't know if it's, again, so as a student of history, right? No book is gospel. History is always someone's perspective on a historical event, right?
Subjective.
So
Right.
it's subjective. Thank you so much. So it's, I don't think the Apocrypha is any less or worse than any other book that's written. What we're saying, we do not have it it is nowhere near to the status of the Holy Bible. The Holy Bible, we know, are words that there's no mistake in there. It's exactly what was meant for us to understand the word of God, our law, statutes, commandments. The Apocrypha is not that. From a historical perspective, to say this happened and that happened, sure, give it as much weight as any other historical book. But you know, again, you kind of have to always, everything you read has to have a critical eye to it. So,
right. Yes, and even to what, you know, for what reason are you reading it? We would never quote from the Apocrypha. We would never quote from the Apocrypha and say, oh, this is, you know, the word of God, or God said, or
no,
you know, according to the Maccabees, you know, this. No, we wouldn't do that. For leisure reading, for historical research, for, you know, whatever you want, great. Knock yourself out. I always say, read, enjoy it.
Right. I usually say, from individuals that are just starting out on this journey, maybe just save that for, like, you know,
Yes.
sophomore junior year, right? But because you don't want to put in too much. Just start with the King James version of the Bible.
Yes.
Look at the videos, or come to our classes. There's like Nationwide Ministries, and we'll take you step by step. Only after you have a firm foundation in our primary source, then will you be able to evaluate secondary sources.
Right.
Exactly. Somebody asked me my humble beginnings as an Israelite years and years ago. Well, when I was talking to them about this, you know, the scriptures and the King James version of the Bible, and, you know, being so excited, someone said, oh, you need to go and read the book of the Maccabees. Until you read that book, then, you know, you haven't read anything. And I said to them, without having any kind of understanding at that time, I probably had more than I thought, but I said to them, well, how am I going to look for the book of the Maccabees when I don't even understand what's right in front of me?
Yeah.
Right? So my foundation, or my grounding, was based on the scriptures. And I'm so glad that thought, you know, the God of Israel, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob gave me that thought, because that to me is such a profound thing, as you said, that you would say to anybody. You know, focus on the what's in front of you, instead of going searching for something that you don't know about.
Right.
What's in front of you? And then people can, you know, tell you everything about the Apocrypha, but they can't tell you anything about the scriptures. I'm thinking to myself, but you never saw the word Israelite. You never see, you know, you can't relate. You can't relate. The people of today, you know, they're really good at breaking it down, but they can't relate the people of today with the transatlantic slave trade with Jerusalem. They can't do that. They can't make that connection, but they will turn the Apocrypha inside out. Like, you don't know what's in front of you.
That's like reading the Second Testament before reading the First Testament.
Right.
Exactly.
Like you have no idea, right? What's like, oh, so when they quote Isaiah, when they quote Jeremiah, when they quote all these, like, what, like, how do you process that? You have no idea, right? When Jesus the Christ says, I've come, you know, not to change the law, but, you know, like, well, what law are you talking about? Like, you know, how would you know what that is, you know, unless you keep it simple. It's not complicated. And that's why we're here to help guide you step by step through it. We'll take you through it. That's okay. But don't have to, you know, leapfrog and jump into things just going to confuse yourself. You know.
But I you know, one thing, and I say, I feel like a broken record, because I pretty much say every single week. But one thing that, you know, Elder Shadrach always said is, go and do your own research. Go and read. It's never stopped you from reading certain books. He's like, oh, don't read that. Oh, go and read it. Okay. But the beautiful thing is, you would never, you know, it's always been the King James version of the Bible. It's always been that. It's never been, oh, you need to go and study this or study that. It's always the King James version.
Simple.
And I love that. It's always consistent. And there's no There's no push and there's no hidden agenda. It's plain.
Yeah.
This is what we have been given. And that's the beautiful thing. You know, even if you decided never to go and do another piece of research, you do have everything you need in the King James Version, even though I would say go out and read other books. But everything is there that we need. And that's why, as you mentioned earlier, Elder Michael, we were given, you know, these were the books that were put together in a language that we understand. So we don't even have to go and learn another language to figure this one out. We don't have to go and, you know, we don't need a dictionary. We don't need anybody else's interpretation. We have the book, you know, the 66 books of the King James Version of the Bible, which talks about our history, our culture, our way of life, our precepts and our judgments, and, you know, what we believe in, and our God, you know, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, and all those people and all that they have gone through. That is so much. That is so much. If we grasp what's there, we will be ahead of the game.
Amen.
Way ahead of the game.
Amen. All right. Can we go to the next slide? Or you want to continue? Yeah. Okay. You can...
Okay.
We kind of talked to them.
Covered that already. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, okay, so we were going through the historical happenings of the Maccabees. So you have Matthias, a Levi priest, and this is really quite interesting because I was thinking about the names as well. Because Matthias, he's a Levi priest, and he leads a rebellion against the Seleucids,
the Greeks,
Seleucid forces. And okay, so this marked the beginning of the Maccabean Revolt. And the funny thing is, his first son, or his son Judah, is actually leading the revolt.
Right.
Yeah, how people will think that, oh, this is from the tribe of Judah, but they're not from the tribe of Judah because he's a Levi, right?
Yeah.
And this happened in 166 BCE. Then we've got 165. As I said, Judah Maccabee, he emerges as the prominent leader of the rebellion. And in 164, they captured and purified the desecrated temple. So remember, the temple was desecrated again. I believe they sacrificed swine's blood. Why they always do that? They know how to get part of the matter.
That's the spiritual dynamic that I was talking about. Someone is manipulating them. Someone on the other side.
They know what's they know what the kryptonite is.
Right.
Whatever. Wow. So
when you read the story in Matthias, so in that environment again, the Greeks are coming in, and like you said, in the temple, but also all throughout the provinces, making and forcing people to throw away the Israelite culture, right? And a part of that was you have to come now and eat pork and come and sacrifice swine on top of the altar, right? So they already desecrated the temple, but now they're going around to all the different cities and making all the cities do exactly the same thing. They want to make sure, right? And they actually sent an army quadrant to go around and do that, military quadrant. And so when they get to the town that Matthias is in, and he's like, he's like a leader in that city, and they come and tell him to do that. And it's so great to read his words, about how he's saying is like, we will not, even if it means that we're going to die, we will not defile ourselves by doing this thing, even to preserve our lives. And at that time, an individual, an Israelite, who was like not as strong, was like, okay, I guess to save my life, I'm gonna go do it. And he starts to process to go and actually sacrifice. And Matthias sees that, and it reminds me of Phineas. Remember Phineas? And he sees that, and he's like, he gets so enraged that he goes out and he kills that person from doing it, and then he kills the army of the Greeks that are there, and the whole city's in an uproar. And then he says, whoever is on God's side, come and follow me. And then they leave the city, and they end up now start this process of building up their army out in the woods to try to protect themselves and to start this rebellion piece. So when you read through, you kind of see the passion that they have. And there's one thing, there's two things. One, at every point you see the good examples of like the good kings we see in Israel, where when he gets into battles, like these battles are definitely outnumbered. These battles are like, I don't know, 300,000 men against 10,000 or 60,000 of the Greeks, so on and so forth. And he prays to the God of Israel. He says, please let me, be victorious and let us, these people who defiled your temple, so on and so forth. And this is many battles, not just one, over and over. And then, he wins. He makes a great name for himself because he wins these battles. And the interesting thing is that even along the way, encouraging his men, and even his sons, when he dies to kind of take over for him, he's quoting David. He's quoting even how the God of Israel preserved Joshua, even how the God of Israel did this. He's going back to the First Testament and saying, these are the stories we know. These are the stories we grew up on. Let the history and the knowledge of how our God preserved our forefathers are going to preserve us if we uphold our culture and not move into this other culture. And so it's very noble. It's very encouraging, that when you sort of see that amount of, and again, we painted a picture of what the world is like then, and for this one person to stand up and say, we will not, bend, and to see him be victorious is definitely, encouraging. But the other thing you see to the point about this used as a historical thing, when you read the First Testament, you usually see, and then God did this, and then God sent a prophet, and then God did that. You don't see that in the Apocrypha, right? You don't see that. Yeah. Again,
it's like,
yeah,
there was no
connection,
no prophet. There's no mention of and God said or God did. No, it's just from their perspective.
Yes.
Right.
They prayed to God. They prayed to God. And then when they were victorious, they were like, oh, they had a feast, they joyed, they whatever. But there's never ever a mention to say, oh, God said this or whatever. So you see the distinction between the Testament and the Apocrypha.
That's one of the things that kind of bothered me when I was reading through not just the Maccabees, but some of the other books. Is like this: where is God here? Where's the God of Israel? It's like, it was a one-way.
But to me, it's sort of like, again, if I write my story, you have to say, I don't think I've ever heard, and then God told me to do A, B, or C, right? I personally, right? I like, oh well, God, I don't want to say assumptions, but God bless me. I think God really bless. I'm going to give my perspective.
You've received a blessing.
Right.
You know you received it because you just know, right?
Right.
Whatever signs that you receive, but that. And I just didn't get that from reading those books. It's like, anyways.
Yeah, but yeah. So I like the fact that he's always encouraging his sons and people around him with stories from the scriptures and talks about the victories that God gave them, and then he's always telling them to do not bend the knee or do not at all fall away from the the God of our fathers. And so that was the encouraging thing, and it was very strong. And if you read the battles, you'll see, it got to a point, and I don't know we're going to get there, but it get to a point where the Greeks are like, they don't know what to do because no matter what they throw at them, we're victorious. Yeah, it's amazing to see. It's not one battle; it's an ongoing war over a number of years. And like you said, eventually they capture back Jerusalem. Eventually, they end up cleaning the temple. They try to figure out, what should they do, as far as how they should do it, because what the Greeks did, not only did they desecrate the temple, take all the gold out, take everything out, the shewbread, all those things, they tore that up and sacrifice and pour pig's blood all over the place, but they also burnt all our books, all the books of the law. They book any of those that survive, they tried to change the image that's in any of the books to reflect them.
There's two things that you point out, and these are the same things that happen today. Number one, and this is why we need to learn how to read. We need to learn how to read instead of just having everybody tell us what to do. But the two things that always affect us is the feeding us of pork when I think about that, I think to myself, you look at how some Christians, they'll say, oh, you bless this and you can eat it. But then you look at, if you read history, you'll see how this was working against us time and time again. And why would they use the pig's blood to sacrifice on the altar? And then why would they feed us that when we come off the ships, at the time of the transatlantic slave trade? And why is it considered a delicatessen in the South? Right? So everything you're being fed all the time, and your books are taken away from you.
Yeah. And they outlawed the Sabbath. They outlawed the new moons or any of our feast days. All of those things were outlawed. You couldn't do any of those things. As a matter of fact, one of the first battles that they had, it says that they came to try to battle against us on the Sabbath day. And a lot of us were like, they were like, hey, we can't, let's just die as opposed to break the Sabbath to go defend ourselves. And the Greeks didn't have any mercy and killed like 1,000 of us. But from that point forward, they were like, "Hey, listen, if we continue to do this, there'd be none of us left. So let's make sure, no matter what it is, we have to defend ourselves, to make sure that we live." So it's just interesting stories along the way to see, how they're dealing with this very difficult, troubling time, that they have. But
again, all I'm seeing, as I said at the beginning, is a battle against the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Again, we are being used because if they wipe us out, then obviously who's going to call on his name, right? And all what you're describing, Elder Jeffrey, is showing bits and pieces of that big plan that they have. Because suddenly, rather than go and take, they should have gone straight to Egypt and take over. Well, they were in Egypt anyway. But my point, there's other places that they could have captured and held on to it. But why are this small minority of people so important? This small remnant, why is it so significant? Why what we do must be adjusted so that they could have their way with us? They could come in and say, okay, we got your land, just pay your taxes, give us your, what do they call it? I forgot.
Tribute.
Yeah. And collect the money and stay rich. But they want to take away your God. They want to take away your culture, because that is the ultimate empowerment. It is not the money factor. It is if they can control you spiritually, then they've won.
Yeah.
What the God of Israel wasn't going to allow to happen.
And on his deathbed, Archytas IV, on his deathbed, when he started to hear how the Maccabees was just destroying everything, right? Again, it's a small country,
right?
And this is Greece. They owned India all the way to Spain, right? They owned everything, right? And the small country, it hurt him so much. He was so depressed. He became so distraught. And he said in his mind, he started to think, maybe it's because I desecrated their temple. Maybe that's why this happened. It started to come to him, but whenever he was so grieved, he ended up dying. Yeah. So it's quite interesting that these things happen a lot of times, so that they could see, the world could see exactly who we are.
Well, they say after death is judgment.
Yeah.
So he became aware of what he did wrong at that point. So instead of going to heaven, as they say, he went back to hell.
Back to hell.
So
okay.
Let's go to
all right. Yeah, let's get the next slide.
That's what you just described.
Yeah, so just talking about the rise against the oppression. So that was really the focus on the first book of the Maccabees. And it's talking about the desecration of the temple and also the religious persecution.
Yes.
If you want to go to the second one.
There it is.
Okay, so the second book of the Maccabees, and I think this is what you're alluding to, Elder Jeffrey, the martyrdom, the faith, what actually took place. And this you can find a lot in the second book, what they did, went through, and their faith to uphold the Israelite tradition. So it's a battle. It wasn't just a physical battle, it's a spiritual battle.
Yes.
And it was hot. It was a hot spiritual battle. So
yeah. There's one story in there that speaks about the woman and her 7 sons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, that was one of the stories that when I read that one, yes, that really touched me. I cried after reading that. It
is. But their faith is so strong. Each one encouraging each one, and pretty much again one of those public displays of the Greeks coming to say you must, throw away your law, statutes, commandments, and follow after us and eat pig meat and all that type of stuff. And they they did not, and it was a public lynching, let's say, execution, burning up. Really, they burnt them up, but they did it all one at a time. So they would torture one in front of all the others, and and even as they are just before they die, they would encourage the others that although I die, I will not, turn away from my culture or from our laws, statutes, commandments.
That
So
was
it was,
very difficult. Even
yeah,
now, just remembering, it was a very difficult experience.
yeah.
It's
So
like,
it's something.
yeah.
It is very significant because it shows, as you said earlier, Chamain, the resilience of our people to fight against the evils of this world. And I mean, as we're expressing ourselves in this situation, as we said, it's a continuation even today. And I always think Elder Shadrach, who, going back almost 40 years ago, he decided to set in tone. It's spiritual warfare. Think about it. Now, we don't have a military like they did back in the day, but we have the wisdom and the understanding that he received from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and shared with us so that we could walk on this earth or be in the world, but not of the world. And this separates us, even though we look like everybody else. And we don't behave in the same fashion. And this is where the confidence of Matthias is expressed and fighting against the Greeks, even though they were, 50 million times stronger in terms of the number of people. But this is why I like to see that we may be a handful, just 12 of us. We can stand the test of time and fight against the evil ways, right? I like that, because if we were 10 billion people, they would say, well, anyway, there were so many of them, they had to win. But there's 12 of us, and we stand and we rely on the strength of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and our trust in each other. That makes a difference.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you've just expressed there is the actual unity, and that's what we struggle with today. Yes. But if we were able to unite, yes, we will be so strong. It doesn't matter. Numbers are irrelevant when it comes to Father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Yeah. Numbers are irrelevant. It's just us learning to trust each other and to be with each other and to move together as one.
Yes,
I think
and the value of the family, right? Because he was a strong father, and he taught absolutely his sons to the point that after he died, the father, and then his son continued it, and then after he died, his brother continued it, and after he did the other. So this kept on for a long while, and that strength and you see that similar patterns of what they were taught. So that, like you said, that unity that was there, in the family, how that, that's, and the thing with the 7 sons, it wasn't just 7 people, it was that they were brothers, and it's just something to talk about, the value of the family and being able to instill those values within your family, that perpetuates even past you to your children and your children's children. It's a powerful testament, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what we have to aspire to, ladies and gentlemen, really do. That unity. It's so funny. We just had, I've mentioned before, we just had a virgin feast, and with the young girl Tamar, the young virgin Tamar. One of the things that I have to say that I really admired about her, watching her grow up over the years, is her commitment to her brethren, especially the 2 younger ones that's coming up after her. I really admire that. I've seen how they move. They always move as a unit, and there's so much strength in that unity. And I look and I think to myself, that is so incredible. If we can see that more with more of our brethren, we would truly come together as one. I look at that and I was thinking, if there's one thing I didn't say that I wish I had, and now I have the opportunity to, because we're talking about it's that moment, right?
Yeah.
Watching her, the way she watches out for Abby and Athalia, they're her girls, such a strong bond. Love it.
Beautiful.
Yes. So we need to make sure, try and encourage all Israel, all of our brethren, to come together as one and really look for each other,
Yes. It makes a big difference. And what it takes me back, and I've seen the video and everything. It takes me back to the 7-branch candlestick, where you have the one piece with the 6 branches coming out of it. So that harmony, that unity, that trust, that working together as one. In essence, it's really one, but you can still see the branches. And I always talk about the hand of God and the 5 fingers. And if you look at it, thank God it's only 5 fingers, because that's covering all of us now and all the branches wherever we are.
Yes, that's right.
It's very significant. And I always say, people might think, well, but what about the rest of, say, the United States? People don't realize that there was only on the eastern side, there was just New York, New Jersey, so to speak. And on the western side, there was Missouri. And on the southern side, there was Atlanta. You see, so you can see the fingers there, right? Those are the main areas. I'm not worried about California and all those places. And then you have the UK and Toronto, 5, all with the one hand, just the one hand, in harmony. I like that.
I like that too. That's very cool. Yeah.
And it's interesting because in the story of the Maccabees, you have that unity, and you have the families that are strong, and you see that's a part of what preserves them. And again, I just love it because they continually quote from the First Testament and the battles that are fought there, and just we're like you said, Michael, it's not a new thing. We're following in the traditions of our forefathers against the enemies of our God and trying to destroy us. And same battle we're fighting right now. But it may not be with sticks and stones, but it is still for the mind and for the hearts and for the spirits of our people. And secondly, you contrast then that with the Greeks, and as you know the story of the Greeks, of the Michael, after what's his name, the Great Alexander the Great, he divided the kingdom among his friends. And the fighting, a part of this has to do with the fighting that's happening, between them, the disunity they have, because they're trying to clamor against his rivals. Everybody wants to be the next Alexander. And so they're fighting over and over and over. And you see this disunity, and it's causing all this. Eventually they fall to the Romans, because of that. And so we see the contrast of how unity works and strengthens us, that even be against all odds, it allows us to persevere and even be the envy, of the nations. And you see the other one eventually crumble. But guess what? We're still here.
Yeah. I'm going to repeat what Elder Andel said yesterday, because I think it's such a powerful thing. Because he was speaking about our culture, and he was speaking about how we turn up to our feast and how we present ourselves at our feast. And he's looking at the cultural aspects, how we dress. We should be dressed culturally for our feast. And one of the things that I look at when especially when I heard him say this, is that if everybody was doing the same thing, we would be so much stronger as a people, right? If we all were doing the same thing, if we all turned up the same way we're supposed to turn up, feast after feast after feast, we will become stronger, and it wouldn't be a strange thing or a weird looking thing. So, and it's not just our feast, it's everything that we do. If we start to really focus not on ourselves, but on the nation, how to make the nation better. How can I turn up so I represent the nation in the best possible way? I think we will be such a stronger nation.
Amen. Sevens for that. Sevens for that.
I really liked what he said, and I thought, that's really quite profound. We should be doing the same thing. And this goes back to what the Maccabees were doing. All those families, they were holding on for their life. For their life, this is our culture. We can't lose it like this. Back to the death. Wow.
Amen.
So
it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I also, and doing my research, I think we should mention the fact that Alexander was not even Greek, but he ruled over them. He was Macedonian, and Macedon was Egyptian, and he came out with Thutmose III to conquer parts of Europe. And the first thing that Alexander did when he got older and became king, he went to Egypt. And I like to think of it as his going home to Egypt. And he went to the Grand Lodge of Luxor. Now, that's a whole different matter. But my point is the spiritual dynamic there has a great implication, because that helped to empower Egypt. Sorry, not in Egypt, to Greece, to allow them to attain the level of power that they have today. Because what Alexander did, he mixed the two spirits, the spirit of the air, that was the Greeks and Gentiles, who they worshipped under different names, of course, but the same spirit, same demon. And then you have the Egyptians, the spirit of the earth, and that combination strengthened Greece, strengthened the Greeks to the point where they can now tackle us, because we were more powerful. Because the Greeks were settled by Cadmus, who was Phoenician or Canaanite. Right. And he's the one that took the alphabet over there, and he really brought them up from the level that they were at when he first got there. But my point in showing this, how they use the spiritual dynamic to empower themselves. And with the more you speak about this story, I could see that adversary there behind the scenes, manipulating all the people. Some are up, some are down, some he kick out, whatever. But they are doing their job, serving their God, trying to destroy the Israelite nation back then. And the same thing today. We are facing the exact same thing, because just because the Greeks are no more and the Romans are no more, now you have Christianity, you have Islam, you got Judaism, you got all working.
Same spirit.
Same spirit, different.
Same spirit.
That's it. Same thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So people have to be aware of this.
Yes.
And to do what we're saying and try to create that trust element, that harmonious depiction, so that we can work together as one family, so that we can serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in spirit and in truth.
Amen. Amen. Yes.
Amen. Absolutely. Yeah. Nothing new under the sun.
Nothing.
No, that's right. That's right. That's amazing, Elder Michael, when you think about that. Yeah, and they say they all are confederate against us, right? So they're not, it's not a single battle one-on-one. They're joining forces because they can't stand against us one-on-one for sure. We've seen that over history, over and over again.
Yes.
And so they join forces to try, and we know they won't be victorious either, but they're going to put up a strong fight for sure.
They're very effective in what they do. They paint the picture of black versus white, male versus female. Or now they got the third element. You don't know if it's a she or whatever. And then they put one philosophy against another philosophy. They put Christmas against whatever. I don't know. I can't keep up. But the point is, it's just the truth versus the lie, or their attempt to discredit us so that they could achieve what they want from the adversary. That's about it. And once the adversary is empowered, then who's going to know the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Nobody.
Yep. No, absolutely. When you say that, you're so correct. It's like, yes, you had the time of the Hellenization. Yes, they wanted to turn all Israel into doing what they used to do, which is like
idolatry.
Terrible.
Yeah.
But the same thing's happening today. It's like
exactly
anything goes. Anything goes. If you could imagine it,
right.
It manifests itself.
Right.
It
right. Right. Yeah.
And to your point,
boundaries. There's no boundaries.
To your point, like as it was in the days before, like you thought, okay, this is not a military campaign. This is really a spiritual campaign. Because why are you telling the people you can't get circumcised anymore? You can't offer up sacrifices of clean animals. So today, if you go against these people that are doing all these crazy things, the legal system is in their favor. They're against us.
And then you would be the one that would be taken away and punished and ostracized. And
listen, you have a man running for president right now that has been indicted. I lost count legally over 100 times, and he is still running for. And that's not the bad part. That's the good part. But here's the bad part that I don't understand. Why is he winning 51% of the votes? Now, I'm not saying the other guy is any better, but my point is he hasn't been indicted yet. But So what does that say about the community, the society in which we live as a, on this earth? Why are they so distorted in their mental faculties that they cannot see? Now think of a person that looked like me. If I have been accused of rape or whatever, child, whatever, I'd be in jail or shot or both. You see, but yet he is running for president and he is getting the majority of the votes. Again, this is not a physical world, ladies and gentlemen. This is not physical. Yes, there's a physical aspect to it, but it's highly spiritual. And that's the point that has to be made so that people can open up their eyes and see what's really going on and behave accordingly.
Yeah, but it's such a battle. We can't fight this by ourselves. That's why we need the God of Israel. We need the God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob. We cannot stand by ourselves. This is not a battle for us because
as it was in the days of old. Someone is saying, why didn't he fight David? But remember, David took on Goliath, but that was not his first choice. Obviously, he was just empowered and inspired to do this. He couldn't even fit into any of the clothing that the military.
That's right. Right.
And so on. Moses didn't take on Pharaoh by himself. Moses had to do what he had to do, and so on and so forth, and let the God of Israel do the rest. So it is very significant. We definitely need the God of Abraham, Isaac.
We cannot do this by ourselves. It's beyond us, because every single thing that we stand for, there is something against it. Everything that we stand for, there's something against it, to the point whereby it's like, okay, I don't want to say a word because you get in trouble. But the thing is, we can't. We have to proclaim the God of Israel's name. We've got to, proclaim his greatness, because it's because of us why the whole world is in the situation in the first place.
That's right.
We have to do that correction, and we've got to proclaim his name and show the world that there is a God in Israel, that our God does exist, that the Ancient of Days is here today, and he is with the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries.
Amen.
So we've got to let it be known.
Yes.
Amen. Amen.
And we are the only ones that know, so we have to teach. We have to do programs like this.
That's our job. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which way you want to hear? Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And nothing gives me more satisfaction than sharing this knowledge.
That's right. And that's why in any area, let's talk about history. Let's talk about science. Let's talk about anything we want to talk about. And we can show just how the God of Israel definitely is the creator of all things.
Yes.
And again, it all comes down to the what you said, Dr. Michael, the lie against the truth.
Yes.
And how we stand for the truth in everything that we do, and that's our goal. Yeah. So I love it. I love it. I also want to say one other thing about this time period too.
Yeah, go ahead.
And a part of its significance in it gives us historical context when we open up the Second Testament, the world that Jesus the Christ goes into. Because out of this, and we see the Romans end up taking over, but we see those pieces. We see Herod become king. How is it that an Edomite becomes king over Israel, right? A piece of that trickles off of this era, and the whole things between Adume and Israel. And then also when we come into the Second Testament, we also have the Pharisees and Sadducees. Where does that come from, right? It comes out of this era, of these different trade of thoughts, right? These trade of thoughts about Israel and distinctions, So again, this foundational piece of it, I think is helpful for putting some context in when we get to the Second Testament, the world that we go into.
No, you're so correct. I'm actually glad that we actually touched on this. Yeah, absolutely.
It sets the scene, like you said, appropriately. So now we know what Paul had to face, and philosophers that came from Alexandria in Egypt, from the Greek perspective, were challenging him.
Yes,
but some of them were willing to worship him because of the way they spoke, the wisdom, and so forth. All of this is challenging, and then of course you bring Jesus into that picture. And you see the same dynamic. It's
Yes.
That is why they called us Christians.
Yes.
You
There
know?
you go. There you go. That's it.
Here we are. We're worshiping a God that we can't see. We're doing things that are not totally physical. They got Zeus over there, Apollo over here, Jupiter. And where's your God?
Yeah.
And where's they go to our temples and they can't find God.
Right.
They can't. Where's your statues? Where's the glory of your world?
Yes.
So now you must be a Christian because you messed up.
Yes.
Right? So Christian, and from my research, is a retarded person, a stupid person. Right. And again, I'm willing to share the information of my research.
We've got to put that up again.
One day we have to look at it.
We'll put it up.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, it's like it's be interesting to choose a few words and show you where they actually came from. I think that would be a nice one. That would be
Christian is more devastating than the N-word. Okay, I'm not saying I approve of the N-word either. Okay, but that's ignorance of the Gentiles because it's not a harsh G.
And you're not talking about the word nice either, are you?
Even
that,
the
not that word, the other one. Okay.
The word, when we were children, words meant something different. Today is a whole different picture. But so Christian, anyone called Christian, you better run because that's not good.
Right, right, for sure.
Absolutely. So there is a few other slides, and I wanted to look at, first of all, Elder Jeffrey. Are you good? Because I think you really slay this part. Talking about the Maccabees and giving us an appreciation. Appreciation of this.
Good.
I really appreciate, right? I think it's such powerful knowledge, and I thank you very much for that.
Sure.
I was actually looking at one of the reasons why the Apocrypha was not part of the authorized King James Version of the Bible. And we mentioned it earlier, and it's also important to know that there are some inconsistencies in that book as well. So, I mean, we've got them on the slides, but we can just probably go through them really quickly.
Okay.
And I think it's really important to know, whether you agree or not, this is what it is, right?
Yes.
First of all, there's no authoritative evidence. So the Apocrypha, it never received the same kind of authority as the other books. Right. So that was one. Number two, as mentioned before, those books in particular were written in Greek. So whether they existed before, because as we know that many of the books were burnt and many of them were destroyed, whether they were written in the languages that we were speaking at the time, we don't know. But right now we know that the Apocrypha itself, it was written in Greek, and that was one of the reasons why it was discredited from the as King James Version of the Bible as well.
Yes.
So, okay, I thought someone said something.
No,
and again, it was also rejected. It was rejected from the canons. The canons were a list of books that were actually accepted, and they were also accepted based on the Israelites at the time that said, yes, well, these are the books. They say the Jews, but I say the Israelites at the time, they say, yes, these are the books. These ones we don't recognize. So no, don't add these books.
Exactly.
So again, that was very important. There was a few, and I've only pointed out some, but before I go there, I should mention that even though many of the characters in the Apocrypha refer to the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Second Testament, they never refer to any of the books of the Apocrypha. They never refer to any of the events that took place.
The teachers.
So I'm not sure why, but that never happened. So there's about 250 odd quotes from the Old Testament, but none of them came from the Apocrypha, which was really quite interesting as well.
That is.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that whole period just like wipes out of history.
Yeah,
So
we cannot authenticate or verify, I should say, the veracity of the writings. And when I say we, I'm talking about those that made the translation. And keep in mind that our forefathers established that educational framework
yes,
in Britain, so that initially they were included, but then once they did the revision and understood what was going on, they were excluded. It's not saying you can't read them to get some cultural perspective or some historical perspective, but as far as being holy, meaning the relationship between the God of Israel and his inspiration of our foreparents and allowing them to write or to speak accordingly, that cannot be verified. That is not there. So that's why the books were left out, and we should be treating them in that same regard today, as you're saying.
yeah, absolutely. Because even in the books of the Maccabee, there are references to praying and paying for the dead, which was really kind of bizarre. It's like, no, we don't do that. What are you talking about? They're talking about paying alms, paying money for the dead, and praying that the dead may be delivered, that God may have mercy on them and deliver them. It's like, no, you don't do that. Read the book of Hebrews. It's like judgment's next. It's like you don't get that. We don't have that. And there are some organizations that actually have the Apocrypha as part of their books and use these specific scriptures to actually justify what they do.
That's true.
Like, so they will pay for their sins, and they will pray for their dead, because this is where they justify it from. And that's why we have to be very, very careful as Israelites to, really, as you said, Elder Michael, to focus on the books that we were given and use that as our authorized instructions.
Yes.
Not these books.
No, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
But it is still good to know, to have a little bit of a framework, because as you can see, as we said at the beginning, the pattern is consistent, not only with the past, the present, and who knows about the future. But my whole point is, if we are aware, we could defend ourselves. We can even attack from a spiritual perspective where necessary. Yeah.
Yes. So the next time someone says, oh, you need to, you don't know anything until you read the Apocrypha and the Maccabees, then you tell them, hey, you this is what you have, and this is what you need, and that's all you need. But if you're going to go there, it's just for fun. It's just for historical context.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So
I think we're
Elder Michael, any last words from you?
The last words I will say is, a lot of these books were not written by our foreparents. That's the first point. And a lot of the content was not by us. And as we all know, only an Israelite is in good standing. And when I say an Israelite, those of the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministry, because there are no others, is allowed to teach and to baptize, right? And that is written in Matthew 28:16-20. So with that perspective, no one else could challenge us when it comes to what is written in this book or what is not. If you are brethren, definitely you can challenge. Outside, no challenge.
Yes. And Elder Jeffrey, with all that wonderful, beautiful description that you gave us, that you actually painted such a wonderful picture today. Thank you so much. Do you have any words?
Oh, just my pleasure. I'm glad. I think, like we're taught, the elder taught, go read and come back and see. And so the more you go read stuff outside, it confirms itself. When you come back, you kind of see, you see the lie. You can see the lie from the truth. As Elder Michael, we start out this thing, and we see that all through the ages, that we were there, an essential part of history, all throughout the ages. We're not a trivial piece off to ourselves, and good and bad, unfortunately. And but I think it's, as a people who's had their history lost, to me, I love putting the pieces together. Right? I love putting the pieces together and sort of seeing how it confirms itself. It's not just, Deuteronomy 28. Like, no, that's not just it. That's it's as you read all through history, you're going to see us there and see an understanding. It's all boils down to who we are, who our God is, and to fight for the truth. And we see that at every stage. There could be different weapons. There could be different adversaries. As Elder Michael said, the underlying spiritual adversary is the same, but the face that may be coming at us, it could be with a handshake, it could be with a hug and a kiss, it can be with a weapon, all these various things. But, that's why we have to be critically think and challenge all those things who come to us. And we have to always pray to our God to keep us firmly rooted in this instructions, the laws, statutes, commandments of our God, so that we can please him. And that's always our prayer from every generation. So I love studying it. I think the past helps us learn, understand our present, and even helps us hopefully prepare for our future.
Amen.
So we know in the end, no matter what the battles have been, we know in the end we're on the winning side. We know the end of the story. We know where this goes. So it's not if, it's when. I want to be part of the winning team when we are successful.
There's no alternative.
That's it.
No alternative. Amen to that. Yes. And for myself, I just want you to thank again the two young men, Dr. Jeffrey and young Ezra, for this subject. Guys, if you have any subjects that you think might be interested, please throw us a message and then we'll look into it for you. But on that note, I just want to thank everybody for being here today, and peace.
Peace.